Here's our evidence, or at least part of it, blown fuses. And that tells us we've got an intermittent circuit problem. It keeps blowing fuses. We got a 97 Tahoe and it keeps blowing fuses on fuse number 9, which is for the tail lights or the marker lights. Now the complaint is that the customer realized this, and so he would replace the fuse. He'd drive it for several days and it'd blow and he'd have to replace the fuse. Well, that interval kept getting more and more frequent where it got to be annoying to him, so he brought it to us. And when he brought it to us, there was no fuse at all in the spot for number 9. So we put a fuse in there thinking that it would blow it, and it didn't. So we got a good fuse in number 9, and the tail lights are working, and it is not blowing this fuse. Now that's the kind of things that we run into that can be very, very frustrating and very, very time consuming. As you can see, we've got evidence that our fuses are blowing, but we don't have the evidence of what's causing it. That's what we need to go look for. Blown fuses of any kind are never easy, but they're easier if they will actually blow when you put the fuse in, because you can put a circuit breaker in there and do some tests that way. But in our case, we put the fuse in, the lights illuminated, it didn't blow, but we know that the circuit has a problem. So the best thing we can do is isolate the circuit, go to fuse number 9. So we did, and we've got our list. And basically everything on there is lighting. The marker lights, whatever your vehicle would have on it, the roof lights, the ashtray light, the fender light, a switch illumination, all of that. So anything in the lighting circuit could be causing this, but ours is not blowing the fuse. Now many times we like to use our fancy, sometimes even expensive equipment to try and help us solve these problems. But in this case, there's really no expensive tools needed. It's just persistence. You know how a circuit works? If power goes to ground before it meets a load, it will blow the fuse. So that's what's happening here. Somewhere a power circuit's going to ground, blowing our fuse every once in a while. But it's not right now, so the only choice we have left is to really go hunt and try and find it. We did spend some time checking some of the basic places that you would look for a fuse or a lighting short. Didn't find anything. So trying to be wise with our time, we went to Identifix to see if we could find any kind of a history, a numbered history that would tell us that there's a certain frequency, a certain place that this thing happens. We really didn't see any one thing that said exactly where it was, but we saw several issues around lighting and some of the connections that talked about chafing, where wires had actually rubbed and touched metal. When the wire touches the metal, it shorts to ground. So that's what we're going to look for. Now we're going to show you where we found our problem. This may not be your exact situation, but if you have a chafing wire problem, it could be anywhere, but this is what you need to look for. Now you're most likely going to spend some time in different areas of the vehicle looking, but this is where we found our problem, behind the right front marker light. Behind these two marker lights, we've got some connections. Now our problem basically, if you look right here, it's not real obvious unless you look close, and that's what I want you to do. If you look right here in this wire, I'm going to move it up, and you can see that that wire, the insulation is rubbed through. It's a little bit hard to see maybe, but you can see that the copper wire is showing. Now let's just lay this back down, and now look right straight back here. When I come back here, you can see where it's touching back here, and that, when this light goes back in there, that's where it was actually touching. So the wire was shorting to the ground. Now this was intermittent. Why would it be intermittent? Well, obviously because it wasn't constantly touching there, but whenever that wire would touch back there, it'd blow the fuse. When would do that? Most likely, obviously it would only be when the lights are on, but it could be when it's either raining or wet, or you hit a bump or something that causes this to move and touch the bare metal back there. So you can see right here the insulation is back, and we've got our bare wire right in there. That's where we were touching ground. So this is the kind of thing that you need to look for when you've got an intermittent blowing a fuse. Find out what is on that fuse and look for evidence. So our first evidence was the blown fuses. The second evidence is now where we can actually see where there is a bare wire touching bare metal causing us to blow the fuse. Now of course the repair here is to repair this wire, put it all back together, and we should be good.